Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Scared Schmidtless. If you're a new listener, hello, I hope you've been doing well. Welcome to the True Crime and Horror Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Alexander Schmidt, hence the clever title. I hope you've all been doing pretty well this week. I've been doing pretty well. I started skateboarding. There you go, there's something that I never thought I would say. I started to learn how to skateboard because lockdown has me that bored that I've thought of buying a skateboard and learning how to skateboard. I feel like I've said skateboard too many times. So let's just get straight into today's case because today I want to bring you a quite honestly disgusting case. I've only really recently found out about this case because the nickname of the killer caught my attention. So for this, I'll most likely be reading from sites that have documented what happened. So today I want to talk to you about the Toybox Killer. Now, with a name like the Toybox Killer, the nickname anyway, as if that's not going to catch your attention, this guy's name was David Parker Ray, but was nicknamed the Toybox Killer, and was also a serial rapist and suspected serial killer. So he was called the Toybox Killer because he had a little trailer where he did most of his killings and apparently killed upwards of over 50 people. I'm sort of going into this blind. I've just sort of skim read it, so bear with me if I make any mistakes. But I've got an article here from Criminal Minds, and then I've also got another article from bizarrepedia.com. Now, when I say that this case is disgusting, I truly mean it. There is a tape that I'm going to be reading out that was done by Ray himself, that he would play to his victims before he tortured them. And from skim reading this little tape that was transcript, so typed out, it's fucking gross. So if you're triggered or you're upset by sexual abuse or anything of that nature, I highly recommend when I get up to the tapes that you tune out and stop listening because it's vile. All right, well, let's get into a little bit of a background about David Parker Ray, aka the Toybox Killer. So Ray was born on November 6, 1939 in Belen, New Mexico. He was raised by his grandfather, though his father maintained an abusive relationship with him. He had a younger sister, but they were split up when their grandmother died. In school, Ray did poorly and was teased for being unusually shy around girls. As a teenager, he abused alcohol and drugs. When he was an adult, he served in the US Army and later became a mechanic. He also married 4 times, each of them ending in divorce. That's unlucky. He had 2 daughters, one of whom he lived with for some time. At some point, he started abducting, raping, and torturing women, presumably killing them as well, so most likely afterwards. Exactly how many victims he claimed over the years is uncertain, though he may have started as early as in 1950 when he was still a kid. Now, the toy box is, as I mentioned before, his trailer. And it says here he spent $100,000 on a trailer, fitting it with sex toys and torture devices. He nicknamed it the Toy Box. Now, this is where all of his killings, I assume, took place, and this is why he earned the nickname the Toybox Killer. Let's move on to his arrest and death. Ray's killings are believed to have come to an end in March 1999 when he was 59 years old. On the 22nd of March, I assume, it doesn't really say here, an intended victim, Cynthia Vigil, escaped in Elephant Butte. Is it Elephant Butte or Butte? New Mexico, after being held captive and tortured in the toy box for 3 days. She had waited for Ray to go to work and then taken the keys from his accomplice, his girlfriend at the time, Cindy Hendy. In an almost cinematic moment, Hendy struck her on the head with a lamp in an attempt to lock her out, but Vigil managed to unlock her chains, stab Hendy in the neck with an ice pick from the floor and run away, wearing only an iron slave collar and the padlock chains. She made it to a mobile home, the owner of which let her in, gave her a robe, and called 911. Police officers were already on their way to Ray's address since a 911 call had been made from there but had been interrupted. Both Ray and Hendy were arrested, claiming to have abducted Vigil in an attempt to help her get rid of her heroin addiction. Okay. When the officers looked inside the toy box and found, besides the torture devices and sex toys, the fake police badge Ray had used to abduct Vigil in Albuquerque and evidence of Vigil's struggle with Hendy, they arrested them both and charged them with 12 different criminal charges, including kidnapping and aggravated assault. Alright, so this is where we move into more victims coming forward. As the investigation continued, evidence of more victims emerged. A past victim, known as Angelica M., came forward telling the authorities about how she was abducted by Ray a little over a month before Cynthia Vigil. She had reported her kidnapping, but for some reason the police didn't investigate it. They also found photos of another victim in the trailer and animal bones buried in the nearby ground. Ray's trial began on March 28, 2000. Just after the jury selection was done, he suffered a heart attack and the trial was postponed. Cynthia Vigil and another surviving victim, Kelly Garrett, testified against him. For some reason, the judge postponed the trial further in order to try Ray for a 1996 murder in Colorado, even though the evidence wasn't very strong. On May 7th, shortly before or during Ray's trial for the Colorado murder, Angelica M. died of a drug overdose, taking her testimony to the grave. On May 23rd, the jury selection for Ray's new trial was finally done and he was charged with 12 counts of kidnapping, sexual abuse, and conspiracy. In July, the judge declared a mistrial because the jury couldn't agree on a verdict. Not all of them were persuaded that the testifying victims had been held against their will. In November, a retrial began. A few days into it, the judge passed away. The proceedings couldn't resume until next year in April. This time, Ray was not as fortunate and was found guilty of all 12 charges. In June, his second trial began. He made a plea bargain to plead guilty in exchange for his daughter, who had been an accomplice in at least one murder, receiving 5 years of probation. Consequently, Ray faced at least 223 years in prison in 2001. Fuck, that's a lot. Imagine how much the world would have changed when you got out of jail after 223 years. Ray has allegedly admitted to having an accomplice named Billy Bowers, a previous business partner whom Ray also had murdered. On May 28, 2002, Ray was transported to the Lee County Correctional Facility in Hobbs, New Mexico, to be questioned by the state police. He died of a heart attack before the scheduled interrogation took place at the age of 62. With him dead, the case became a dead end. No bodies were found, no possible victims were identified, and no old suspicious deaths related to Ray were ever officially linked to him. In November of 2002, the toy box was opened to the public with the hope that it would lead to more surviving victims coming forward. In February of 2012, the Australian Federal Police contacted the FBI about a potential victim known only as Connie, who had been mentioned in a letter from a man named Mark, who was postmarked in Sydney and was found in Ray's residence after his arrest. Alright, let's talk about the toy box and how he tortured his victims. Now, this is a little bit graphic, so just a heads up if you can get nauseous from this stuff. The Toybox Killer targeted prostitutes, luring them with some kind of ruse, such as soliciting them or pretending to be a police officer. That would explain the police badge mentioned earlier. He would then take them to his homemade torture chamber, the Toy Box, which was filled with sex toys, surgical instruments, chains, pulleys, straps, clamps, spreader bars, syringes, and diagrams of the human body. There was also a gynecology table that the victims would be restrained in, a mirror mounted on the ceiling so that the victims would be able to see themselves be raped and tortured, and a device for electrical torture. Ray would record the torture either by audio or with a video camera and take trophies such as clothing and jewelry. At least some of the victims were let go after a few days. Ray claimed to have drugged them to make them forget about what happened. According to Cindy Hendy, the fatal victims were dismembered and buried, dumped in the Elephant Butt Lake, or dumped in ravines. This toy box was a $100,000 trailer that was apparently soundproof, that was full of sex toys and torture devices. Ray began picking up vulnerable prostitutes to bring them back to his toy box torture chamber. While there, the defenseless and powerless women would be subjected to rape and torture. As I mentioned before, women who survived the torture were sometimes set free. Others sometimes escaped. However, the majority of them could not survive the sexual torture and ended up passing away while or after Ray was finished with his deeds. The women who passed away from the injuries ended up having their lifeless bodies thrown into a local lake or ravine by Ray and his accomplices at the time. Oh, yuck. This article has it. Oh, yuck. Some of the pictures, there's this black box with a hole in it where he would put their head. It's just got this hole at the end, so it would just be completely black inside it. While many believe Ray committed these acts alone, the truth of the matter is that he also had several female accomplices that worked with him to lure women and help him torture these women. He also had a male accomplice that took part in some of his crimes. The most well-known accomplices of Ray's were Cindy Lee Hendy and Glenda Ray. Both of these women are known for their involvement in abducting and torturing many of Ray's victims. They've included some tools of torture here. They're pretty gross, to be honest. There's an electrical machine, an electrical torture machine, some type of like furry coffin thing. Yeah, a handmade coffin, part of the 6 sexual torture games. It's a coffin filled with I'd say wool. It looks like wool, so maybe it's like a heat thing. Now, as mentioned earlier, David Parker Ray had some tapes that he would play to his victims before or during while he was torturing them. And these tapes, as I said before, I skimmed through them, are very, very disgusting and vile. So if you are triggered by sexual abuse, anything like that, as I mentioned before, please stop listening. I think it's about to get really fucked. Ray created vile audio tapes of him talking about what is going to happen to the victims. When the victims were tied up and drugged, he forced them to listen to the sinister tape before being tortured and sodomized, or whenever they regained consciousness. So it's one thing to have been strapped down and forced to listen to this, essentially, right? But to have also been drugged out of your mind, just imagine how scary some of this would have sounded to someone who isn't in the right mind space because it's affected by drugs. Only small bits of the original audio have been leaked. For whatever reasons, people have recreated the tapes by them reading the official transcripts and posted them on YouTube. The following is a transcription of an advisory message that was tape recorded by Ray on 23rd of July 1993. And just a heads up, this is the tape coming up now, and I haven't fully read this, so I may have a reaction of my own. Just want to provide a heads up of some sort. Hello there, bitch. Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You are disorientated and scared too, I would imagine. Perfectly normal under the circumstances. For a little while at least, you need to get your shit together and listen to this tape. It is very relevant to your situation. I'm going to tell you in detail why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you, and how long you'll be here. I don't know the details of your capture because this tape is being created July 23rd, 1993, as a general advisory tape for future female captives. The information I'm going to give you is based on my experience dealing with captives over a period of several years. If at a future date there are any major changes in our procedures, the tape will be upgraded. Now, you are obviously here against your will, totally helpless, don't know where you're at, don't know what's going to happen to you. You're very scared or very pissed off. I'm sure that you've already tried to get your wrists and ankles loose and know you can't. Now you're just waiting to see what's going to happen next. You probably think you're going to be raped, and you're fucking sure right about that. Our primary interest is in what you've got between your legs. You'll be raped thoroughly and repeatedly in every hole you've got. Oh my. Because basically you've been snatched and brought here for us to train and use as a sex slave. Well, I suppose it is to the uninitiated, but we do it all the time. It's going to take a lot of adjustment on your part, and you're not going to like it a fucking bit. But I don't give a rat's ass about that. It's not like you're going to have any choice about the matter. You've been taken by force, and you're going to be kept and used by force. What all this amounts to is that you're going to be kept naked and chained up like an animal, to be used and abused anytime we want to, any way that we want to. And you might as well start getting used to it, because you're going to be kept here and used until such time as we get tired of fucking around with you. And we will, eventually, in a month or 2, maybe 3. It's no big deal. My lady friend and I have been keeping sex slaves for years. We both have kinky hang-ups involving rape, dungeon games, etc. We've found that it is extremely convenient to keep 1 or 2 female captives available constantly to satisfy our particular needs. We are very selective when we snatch a girl to use for these purposes. It goes without saying that you have a fine body, and you're probably young, maybe very young, because for our purposes, we prefer to snatch girls in the early to mid-teens. Sexually developed, but still small-bodied, scared shitless, easy to handle, and easy to train. And they usually have tight little pussies and assholes. They make perfect slaves. That's so fucked. Anytime that we go on a hunting trip, if we can't find a little teenager, we usually start hitting the gay bars, looking for a well-built, big-titted lesbian. I thoroughly enjoy raping and screwing around with lesbians, and there's not much as danger of them carrying a sexually transmitted disease, and I don't like using condoms. Also, even though they're a little older, unless they've been playing with dildos a lot, they still have tight holes between their legs, like the younger girls. If we can't find a lesbian that we want, we snatch anything that is young, clean, and well built. We very seldom come back empty-handed, because there's plenty of bitches out there to choose from. And with little practice in deception, most of them are very easy to get with little risk. At this point, it makes little difference what category you fall into. You're here and we're going to make the most of it. You're going to be kept in a hidden slave room. It is relatively soundproof, escape-proof, and is completely stocked with devices and equipment to satisfy our sexual fetishes and deviations. There may or may not be another girl in the room. Occasionally, for variety, we like to keep 2 slaves at the time. In either case, as the new girl, you'll definitely be getting the most attention for a while. Now, as I said earlier, you're going to be kept like an animal. I guess I've been doing this too long. I've been raping bitches ever since I was old enough to jerk off and tie little girls' hands behind their back. As far as I'm concerned, you're a pretty nice piece of meat to be used and exploited. I don't give a flying fuck about your mind or how you feel about this situation. You may be married, have a kid or 2, boyfriend, girlfriend, a job, car payment. Fuck it. I don't give a rat's ass about any of that, and I don't want to hear about it. It's something you're going to have to deal with after you're turned loose. I make it a point never to like a slave, and I fucking sure don't have any respect for you. Here, your status is no more than that of one of the dogs, or one of the animals out in the barn. Your only value to us is the fact that you have an attractive, usable body. And like the rest of the animals, you'll be fed and watered, kept in good physical condition, kept reasonably clean, and allowed to use the toilet when necessary. In return, you're going to be used hard, especially during your first few days while you're new and fresh. You're going to be kept chained in a variety of different positions, usually with your legs or knees forced wide apart. Your pussy and asshole is going to get a real workout, especially your asshole, because I'm into animal sex. Also, both of the holes are going to be subjected to a lot of use with some rather large dildos, among other things. And it goes without saying that there's going to be a lot of oral sex. On numerous occasions, you're going to be forced to suck cock and eat pussy until your jaws ache and your tongue is sore. You may not like it, but you're fucking sure going to do it. And that's the easy part. Our fetishes and hang-ups include stringent bondage, dungeon games, a little sadism, nothing serious but uncomfortable and sometimes painful, just a few little hang-ups that we like to use when we're getting off on a bitch. Hehe. If you're a young teeny bopper and ignorant about fetishes and deviations, you're about to get an enlightening crash course in sex. Who knows, you may like some of it. It happens occasionally. If we want to take the time and trouble, even under these conditions, most bitches can be brought to orgasm. Now, I've already told you that you're going to be here a month or 2, or maybe 3, if you keep us turned on. If it's up to my lady, would keep you indefinitely. She says it's just as much fun and less risky, but personally, I like variety. A fresh pussy now and then to play with. We take 4 or 5 different girls each year, depending on our urges and sometimes accidental encounters. Basically, I guess we are like predators. Fuck yeah, you're a sexual predator, Jesus Christ. We're always looking. Occasionally, some sweet little thing will be broke down on the side of the road, walking, bicycling, or jogging. Anytime an opportunity like that presents itself and it's not too risky, we'll grab her, even if we've already got a captive in the playroom. Variety is definitely the spice of life. Now, I'm sure you're a great little piece of ass and you're going to do a lot of fun to play with. But I will get tired of you eventually. If I killed every bitch we kidnapped, there'd be bodies strung all over the country. And besides, I don't like killing a girl, unless it is absolutely necessary. So I've devised a safe alternate method of disposal. I've had plenty of bitches to practice on over the years, so I've pretty well got it down pat, and I enjoy doing it. I get off on mind games. After we get completely through with you, you're going to be drugged up real heavy, with a combination of sodium pentothal and phenobarbital? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, sorry. They are both hypnotic drugs that will make you extremely susceptible to hypnosis, auto-hypnosis, and hypnotic suggestion. You're going to be kept drugged a couple of days while I play with your mind. By the time I get through brainwashing you, you're not going to remember a fucking thing about this little adventure. You won't remember this place, us, or what has happened to you. There won't be any DNA evidence because you'll be bathed and both holes between your legs will be thoroughly flushed out. You'll be dressed, sedated, and turned loose on some country road. Bruised, sore all over, but nothing that won't heal up in a week or 2. The thought of being brainwashed may not be appealing to you, but we've been doing it a long time and it works. It's the lesser of 2 evils. I'm sure that you would prefer that in lieu of being strangled and having your throat cut. Undoubtedly, someone's going to be looking for you. There may or may not be a missing persons report, but nobody's going to be looking for you here. They don't have any idea where you're at. They don't even know where you're at. You don't even know where you're at. We're always very careful about that. There are not going to be any knights in shining armor coming to rescue you. You are strictly on your own, and under the circumstances, I bet that is a scary thought. If there is another girl in the room, she won't be able to help you either, because she's going to be in the exact same position you're in. As for escaping, I'm sure you'll try to figure out a way. That's human nature. But it's not hardly even worth talking about here. It would not be prudent on our part to have you running around the woods screaming rape. It would be an embarrassment to say the least. Consequently, you are going to be kept in an environment that is more secure than a prison cell. If it has not already been done, very shortly a steel collar is going to be padlocked around your neck. It has a long, heavy chain that is padlocked to a ring in the floor. The collar will never be removed until you are turned loose. It's a permanent fixture. The hidden playroom where you're going to be kept has steel walls, floor and ceiling. It is virtually soundproof and has a steel door with 2 keyed locks. The hinges are welded on and there are 2 heavy deadbolts on the outside. The room is totally escape proof, even with tools. Anytime that you are left unattended in the room, your wrists will be chained and there are electronic sensors to let us know if you move around too much. And if that's not enough, there is a closed circuit TV system with a surveillance camera. It's wired to the main TV in the living room, so we can check you once in a while, or just sit and watch you for the fun of it. Electronics is a wonderful thing. Expensive, but hell, everything in this room is expensive. And damn well worth it. If everybody knew how much fun it was to keep a sex slave, half the women would be chained up in somebody's basement. Anyway, we've had a lot of practice at this and we're not real concerned about you escaping. You're fucking sure not gonna go anywhere. Now, if you're not already naked, you soon will be. Your clothing will be bagged up and saved until such time as we decide to turn you loose. As far as being naked goes, you might as well get used to it. For what you are going to be used for, clothing would just be in the way. Besides, I like watching a naked woman's body, all of it, whether it be in a room or on a TV set. As I've already said, you'll be fed and watered on a regular basis. Not as much of either as you're used to, I'm sure, but enough to keep you healthy. You'll only be fed once a day, like the rest of the animals, and during the first few days, until you adjust to it and your stomach shrinks up, you're going to feel a little weak and you'll be hungry all the time. It won't take long, 3 or 4 days, and during the first few days, until you adjust to the environment, I prefer to keep you in a weakened condition anyway. Now, you already know that you've been kidnapped and brought here for us to train and use as a sex slave. I realize that being abducted and forced into sexual slavery is a hard pill to swallow. Some girls really have a lot of trouble with it, and I'm sure that you will to a certain extent. But face it, you can't get away and you can't say no. You're going to be naked all the time. You won't be able to struggle or resist. You're going to have to lay there and take it, good or bad, no matter what is being done to you. A scary thought? Yes, but there are no options. Nothing that you can say or do will change the fact that it's going to happen. Many girls beg and plead. Almost all of them cry a lot, especially during the first 3 or 4 days, and some of them scream and threaten, but I have a poster on the wall in the playroom that says it all. If they're worth taking, they're worth keeping, and I'm going to tell you, just so you know, since you are being kept here against your will, we will never trust anything you say, do, or promise. You are a potential threat to us, and you will always be treated as such. On numerous occasions, bitches have told me that they'd do anything I wanted them to do, if I'd just take the chains off. I've been offered ransom money. I've even had girls tell me they liked it, but I like to use the chains. Money's not that important, and masochists are rare as hell. Heh. I wonder what your scam's gonna be. Not anything that I haven't heard before, I bet, if you get the chance to talk at all. Well, let's change the subject a little bit. You already know that for the most part you're going to be kept in the playroom, but once in a while we like to take a captive into the bedroom, in chains of course. Also, we have a couple of real close friends that we party with once in a while. They know about our hang-ups and don't have any problem with fucking a slave. You may be required to service them occasionally, but that's an easy one. For the most part, just fucking and sucking. They don't get into the heavier stuff. However, when we have a party, sometimes I like to put on a little show that you won't like at all. You'll be taken into the living room and put on the floor on your hands and knees, naked. Your wrists, ankles, knees and hips will be strapped to a metal frame to hold your body in that position. The frame is designed for doggy fucking. Your ass up in the air, sex organs exposed, your tits hanging down on each side of a metal support bar, knees spread about 12 inches. The position similar to that of a bitch dog in heat, right in the middle of the floor, so we can sit on the couch and in chairs and watch. I'm going to rub Canine Breeder's musk on your back, the back of your neck, and on your sex organs. Now I have 3 dogs, all of them males, cause I don't need any fucking pups. One of them is a very large German Shepherd that is always horny, and he loves it when I bring him in the house to fuck a woman. Oh my. After I let him in the house, he'll sniff around you a little bit, and within a minute he'll be mounting you. There's about a 50-50 chance which hole he'll get his penis into, but it doesn't seem to bother him whether it's the pussy or the asshole. His penis is pretty thin. It goes in easy, but it's about 10 inches long, and when he gets completely excited, it gets a hell of a knot right in the middle of it. Now, I've had slaves tell me it feels like they got a baseball inside of them. It doesn't take long. He's going to hump you real fast for about 3 or 4 minutes. And while he's doing it, he'll wrap his front legs around your chest to hold himself in position. And in the process, he'll probably scratch your tits up a little bit with his claws. After he gets through, he usually turns around and tries to pull out. Oh, he'll jerk a little, not much, mostly just steady pressure, and I've timed it. The knot will usually shrink up enough to come out of your pussy in about 3 minutes. If he's in your asshole, about 5 minutes. I don't use the dog all that often, but I don't deprive him of pussy either. There's no doubt he's going to be on you a few times while you're here, because I like watching it. And anytime it's just you, me, and the dog, it will always be in your butt. The dog knot on his penis is big and extremely uncomfortable when he's pushing it back and forth up in her anus. I really enjoy watching a girl wiggle, jerk, and squirm around while he's doing it. Consequently, I give him a little assistance getting it in the right hole. Now, if you think all of this stuff is sick and depraved, you haven't seen anything yet. This is a different world. Among our circle of friends, little things like rape, kidnapping, doggy fucking, stuff like that are everyday occurrences. Matter of course, here anything can happen and often does. We like living in the mountains because it's quiet, secluded, private, and everybody minds their own business. The only close house belongs to our friends and they don't hear or see anything. Okay, let's talk about your training, the rules, and punishment. Here you are a slave and discipline is extremely strict. Here you are a slave and discipline is extremely strict. You're going to be given a set of rules, things you can and cannot do, and you will learn to comply because each time you violate a rule, you will be punished. As soon as each rule is told to you, it will become law as far as you're concerned. And you know what's going to happen every time you fuck up. We'll use a couple of methods of punishment. A whip is an excellent training aid. So is an electroshock machine. Anytime you get out of line, one or both will be used on your body, and I assure you it will not be pleasant. There is not many rules and they're very easy to remember, but you're going to make mistakes. Every slave does. I don't like repeat offenders. During the first few hours, the first time you violate a certain rule, and then in brackets it says tape skips, a teaching process. The second time you violate the same rule, you'll be lightly punished. And the third time you violate it, it's going to be full punishment. After the first day, we won't cut you any slack at all. We will expect total obedience. Now let's start this off right. You are a slave. You don't realize it yet, but you will eventually. I'm your master and the lady is your mistress. You will be totally docile. You'll be very quiet and you'll only speak when spoken to. Never initiate conversation. Keep your mouth shut. Any time that you are spoken to, you'll be required to respond and it will be with proper speech. Remember that we are in the dungeon game and as long as you are here, it's the only game in town. Anytime you are asked a question where a yes or no answer is required, you'll respond by saying yes, master, no, mistress, no, master, etc. You'll show proper respect. Having to use the word master or mistress may sound funny, petty, or vain to you, but that's alright. If you choose not to do it, you can laugh while you're being whipped or when your body is convulsing under the electroshock machine. You will respond to commands without protest or resistance. Do exactly what you're told and nothing else. Remember that you are here as a slave and failure to respond to a command will definitely get you in trouble. If I decide to rape you in your pussy or in your asshole, don't resist or struggle. When I tell you to spread your legs or to pull them back, you say yes, master, and obey the command. Because to do anything less will get you beaten. If I tell you I want to be sucked off, you say yes, master, and open your mouth. I love oral sex if it's done right. You're going to be taught exactly the way I like it. How to use your lips and tongue. We'll be practicing a lot, and each time when I get ready to come, I'm going to push my penis down your throat and keep it there until I get through squirting. I'm not going to choke you, but you need to learn to hold your breath and swallow every bit of the sperm. If I see one drop leaking out of your mouth, I'm going to punish you. Basically, it's going to be the same with your mistress. If she demands oral sex, you say yes, mistress, and respond. She will also teach you exactly the way she likes it, and you'll keep using your tongue on her pussy until she gets off. Now, I can't foresee what kind of bitch you're going to be, how you feel about oral sex, or any of that shit, but I'm going to tell you this. If during oral sex or any other time you should bite one of us, I'm going to cut on you a little bit. I'll cut your nipple off for a starter, and if it's a bad bite, I'll cut off your tit too. That may sound harsh, but your teeth are serious weapons, and we're not going to tolerate any shit from you. I have been bitten and I've cut off nipples, so don't fuck around. That's enough said about it. Remember the commands: yes, master, no, mistress. If your mistress should come into the room and tells you to get down on the floor or lay down on the floor, you say yes, mistress, and then you lay down on the floor exactly the way she told you to do. If she tells you to pull your knees up, you say yes, mistress, and pull your knees up. If she tells you to spread your knees, you say yes, mistress, and spread them wide apart and hold them there so she can play with your pussy, use dildos, or whatever. A slave must always obey every command and offer no resistance. Remember that. Never say no unless it's justified, like in response to a question. If either one or both of us decide to put you in a different bondage position, the chains will be taken off the various parts of your body, wrists and ankles, never off your neck. Don't kick, struggle, or resist in any way. If you do, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. If you're told to hold your leg out so a chain can be attached to your ankle, you say yes, master, or yes, mistress, and hold your leg out. For repeated rule violations, the punishments are eventually going to become harsh and even brutal, and you won't have anyone to blame but yourself. Now, I should also tell you that there's going to be times when the whip and electroshock is used not for punishment but for our own pleasure. The difference will be that when it's done for pleasure, the whip strokes will be much lighter. They'll sting like hell, but they won't have that burning sensation and leave welts that hurt for hours. As for the electroshock machine, the voltage will be turned down. It won't be that harsh electricity that makes your body convulse and jerk all over the table. You haven't experienced any of that yet, but I'm sure that you will. To avoid these punishments, you're going to have to be very quiet, very docile, and very obedient. And imagine that's going to be very hard for you to do. You'll probably try us a few times to see if this is real. Most captives do. If you want to, be my guest, because it's all part of the game. Now let's discuss talking. You cannot talk. You cannot speak unless you've been given permission. I believe that rule gets more bitches in trouble than anything else because they can't keep their damn mouth shut. They always want to whine, beg, plead, try to talk me into turning them loose. I used to listen to it. I don't anymore. I enjoy blessed silence. Around here, your mouth is for sucking, not talking. Around here, the only time I ever want to hear you initiate speech is if you have to use the restroom, and you will learn to do it properly. Master, may I please use the restroom? Or mistress, may I please use the restroom? In response, we will ask you what you need to do. If you have to pee, you say pee master, or pee mistress. If you have to crap, you say crap master, or crap mistress. It will be done that way because quite often you'll be in heavy restraints, a lot of straps on your body, chains on your wrists and ankles, a bunch of stuff that's time consuming and hard to get loose. If you have to pee, we'll use a bedpan. If you have to pee, we'll use a bedpan. If you have to shit, you may have to hold it a while. Whatever the case, we need to know, and you definitely need to tell us, because if you make a mess, you're going to be punished and have to clean it up. Now I've covered the basics pretty thoroughly. You know to keep your mouth shut and not try to talk. You know the proper way to say master or mistress, and you know how you're expected to act and respond to commands. If you learn to do all that, there will not be a great deal of punishment. We'll get along pretty good. This is the second part of the tape. So far, this is fucking disgusting to read, and I sort of wish I hadn't done it for this episode. But there's a second part here that it's not as long, but I'm just going to read through it anyway. There's going to be a lot of other things done to your body besides just fucking and sucking. But for the most part, you'll either be in stringent bondage or strapped down on the gynecology table. You won't be able to struggle or resist anyway. Now, you're going to be required to learn fast. Training is not one of my favorite things to do, and I prefer fucking around with a slave that's already trained. I've already given you the basics, so there is not that much to learn. But until you accept the fact that you are a slave, you're going to have problems with it. Remember that each time you fuck up, you're going to be punished. And after it's happened a few times, you're really going to dread it. Some girls tend to be a little rebellious. I sure as hell wouldn't advise that, because it will get you in serious trouble. Here, you definitely need to be docile. You're not in any position to be otherwise. We've done this so many times that we know exactly what we like to do to a slave. We don't go out of our way to brutalize a girl. If you don't give us any trouble, we won't do any more to your body than what is necessary to satisfy our sexual needs. Initially, when we've got a new girl in the playroom, we're kinda like a kid with a new toy. You are fresh and exciting, and we're going to spend a lot of time playing with you. Later, after the newness wears off, things will settle into something of a routine. We'll only be spending 3 or 4 hours each day in the playroom. You're going to have a lot of free time to rest, sleep, watch TV or whatever. If you're acting halfway decent, you'll be left in a reasonably comfortable position so you can relax. As far as sex goes, your mistress is going to want her pussy eaten a couple of times a day. For my part, I like getting off in a slave twice or sometimes 3 times each day, usually in her mouth or in her arsehole. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to be sticking my dick in your cunt once in a while too. But for the most part, when I use that hole, it's going to be with large dildos. We're going to be in and out of the room several times each day, but you will have a lot of free time. Now I gotta tell you that there's another side to the coin. Once in a while, we get a bitch that is resentful, rebellious, won't mind, uncooperative. That doesn't work here. I'm sure that you realize you're on thin ice. As long as you have chains on your body, don't try either one of us. It is an extremely dangerous thing to do because, if necessary, I'm capable of doing things to your body and torturing you in ways that you can't even imagine. The playroom is equipped with a full set of surgical instruments, which I have had occasion to use and will again as necessary. I've already told you what will happen if you bite. To be completely safe here, you have to be docile. If you should accidentally or otherwise hurt, scratch, or kick either one of us, you could be in very serious trouble. I'm sure that you want to survive this experience, and I want you to also, but you are expendable, and it's no big deal to go out and snatch a replacement. It may sound harsh and cold, but you give us too much trouble, or if you pose any kind of threat to us, I won't make any qualms at all about slicing your throat. Like I said before, I don't like killing girls that we bring here, but occasionally things happen. What can I say? I would really hate to have to dump that pretty little body off in a canyon somewhere to rot. I'm not trying to scare you, that's just the way it is. Be nice, keep your mouth shut, learn the rules, and survive. We are into S&M, and you're going to be hurt a little. But everything we do to a girl is designed to cause pain, not injury. There is a big difference. No matter how painful it is, nothing that we do to your body will cause any serious or permanent damage. I'm not lying to you or trying to make it sound easier because that would be pointless. I'm telling it like it is. That's the way we do things, and that's the way it's going to be, unless we have problems with you. I've already told you that you're going to be whipped lightly for pleasure. The electroshock will be used lightly for pleasure. Most of the other nasty little things that we're going to do, for the most part, will be done on your breasts, nipples, and between your legs. The lady is fortunate. She can get off any time. She just likes it to be a little sadistic with a slave once in a while. In my case, I cannot get off with a girl unless I hurt her first. That's basically the reason I'm into rape and slavery, and the reason that you're going to be subjected to a certain amount of pain. Mostly what we do to a captive is stick needles in her breasts and through her nipples, through her cunt lips, through her clit, and I'm into stretching certain things. Honestly, this is making me feel a little bit sick. We're not far off though, it's almost finished. Clamps with long nylon cords on each one will occasionally be put on your cunt lips so your pussy can be kept pulled open. And they're also going to be attached to your nipples. The nylon cords will be put through ceiling rings or rings on each side of the table and pulled very tight to stretch your tits. Your clit will also be clamped and stretched, and we're going to be using dildos. The dildos are going to be used a lot, more than anything else, and consequently, what you're going to have the most trouble with. Many of them are long, very large in diameter, and very painful while they're being forced in. Your mistress will use them in your pussy, and I like to use them in both holes. Actually, that pretty well covers it. There's going to be a few other little things that we do. Nothing of greater consequence, and not often, just variety. As far as needles go, they'll always be sterilized. The clamps are going to hurt like a motherfucker, but they won't cause any permanent injury. They don't even break the skin. Yeah, because that's what they're fucking concerned about, okay. As far as the dildos go, both of those holes between your legs will stretch a hell of a lot. It'll hurt, but they'll stretch. Your pussy is designed for a baby to come out of, and we won't be using anything bigger than that. The really large ones will not be used in your butt. I don't want to stretch that hole so big that it's not usable for fucking. Anyway, that pretty well covers that part of it. Let's see, what have I missed? Let's talk about the screaming. Every once in a while we get a screamer, some bitch that just wants to scream all the time, and it definitely gets them in trouble because it gets on my nerves. Very shortly, that gag is going to be removed. We live in an isolated area, so screaming is not usually a problem. In the playroom, it's not much of a problem at all because of the soundproofing, but it irritates the fuck out of me. There is a time and a place. Occasionally, I like to hear a bitch scream, but usually not. The only thing that screaming is going to get you around here is a lot of punishment. And if you do it habitually, I will just keep a ball gag in your mouth all the time. It'll only be taken out for you to eat and suck. I've already told you about the talking. Don't try to initiate a conversation. Don't say anything. You will be punished. If you're a smoker, now's a good time to quit. I'm not going to buy your cigarettes, and if you ask for one, the only thing you're going to get is a few whip marks. Remember, when you're asked a question, you say yes, master, or no, master. If you have to go to the restroom, it is master or mistress. May I please go to the restroom? Any time that you are given a command, always acknowledge the order verbally. Yes, master, and then obey the order. That's not too difficult. A bright little thing like you should be able to learn it real fast. There are going to be times where you are under stress, a certain amount of stress, and you may forget, but that's no excuse. Each time you fuck up, you are going to be punished. After you're here a few days, it'll eventually become automatic and there'll no longer be a problem. I realize that after a while when I take that gag off, you are really going to want to try to talk to me. Talk me into turning you loose and such. It's because with your wrists and ankles chained, your mouth is the only defense you have. But don't do it. It won't work and all it will bring is punishment. Your first day here is not going to be too difficult. There won't be any serious dungeon games. Your training has already been initiated, so you'll have to be very careful what you say and how you act. But for the most part, there's going to be a little exploring. We will become very familiar with your body and do a little fucking and sucking. We may tease you a little bit with some of our more humane toys, but nothing serious. It's got to be kind of an adjustment period. Don't say anything, don't struggle or resist, no matter what we do, because we are going to start enforcing the rules immediately. Now later, I'm going to be asking you a bunch of questions. Since I'm going to be caring for your body for the next month or 2 or 3, there are certain things that I need to know. I have prepared a questionnaire that I fill out with each new captive. Some of the questions are going to be embarrassing, but you should answer them truthfully and completely. You damn well better. I don't want to catch you in a lie. The questions will be in reference to your physical condition, any medical conditions that I need to know about, medications, sex habits, sexual preferences, any childbirth you might have had, period dates, and so forth. Now, your training has already started. Each time I ask you one of those questions on the questionnaire, there's going to be a proper way to answer it, which I'll tell you about in a few minutes. While we go through the questionnaire, you're going to be strapped down to the gynecology table. Your feet will be in the stirrups and your knees will be pulled wide apart with everything exposed. I like to keep a girl that way while she's answering the questions so I can examine and verify anything she might tell me which would affect her use as a sex slave. If you do have any kind of medical condition, by all means let me know. We'll discuss it and we may make adjustments. We won't turn you loose, but we may make adjustments. We're probably going to be starting on this questionnaire pretty soon. You'll be naked, and as I said, you'll be strapped down on a gynecology table so you can't wiggle or squirm around. You'll be talking quite a bit, answering the questions, so I'm sure that we'll start your speech training at the same time. Consequently, before we start the questionnaire, 2 small electrical clamps will be put on your nipples. Each time a question is asked, you will respond properly. For instance, if I ask you how old you are, you will respond by saying, "Master, I'm 19 years old." Answer the question completely and say nothing else. If the question requires a yes or no answer, say yes, master, or no, master. If I ask you your period dates, you say, "Master, my period is so and so." If I ask you about childbirth, you say, "No, master," or "Master, I had a baby a year ago," or whatever. Always start each sentence by saying master. And take your time. We're not going to be in any hurry. Think about what you're going to say before you say it, because each time you fuck up, I'm going to press a little button and send a few thousand volts of electricity through your nipples, right down into your tits. You are in training, so it will be a quick blast. I'm not going to hold it down and torture you, but each time you screw up, it's going to be a little worse. So, take your time. Answer the questions properly. I'm not going to push you. We're not going to be in any hurry. Think about each thing you're going to say and be damn sure and start your sentence with master. If you get through that okay, get your speech down pat, keep your mouth shut, and don't give us any trouble, then the first day is going to be real pleasant for everybody. I'm going to put some dildos in those holes between your legs, but they will not be big ones. Basically, I just want to become very familiar with your sex organs and the size of the holes. All girls are different. During the course of the day, you're going to be raped several times, but that's no big deal. The second day, after you get totally familiar with the rules and procedures, we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. A lot of it will not be very pleasant for you, but you might as well get used to it because it's going to be like that for a while. Eventually, things will settle down a little. Then, just take it day by day. Well, I believe I've told you about everything I can. I cannot predict the future. I can't predict changes of procedure, but if this tape is being played for you, I have to assume that it is reasonably accurate. And I can only give you advice. Be smart and be a survivor. Don't ever scream. Don't talk without permission. Be very quiet. Be docile and obedient, and by all means, show proper respect. Oh my god. After the tape, there's pictures of the trailer and what was in it. I'm really not comfortable with this anymore. The graphs that have been drawn up and then some of the toys they have in here is quite disgusting. There's a picture here with a bunch of dildos, different sizes, ball gags, bondage gear, pictures of women being gagged and strapped down. I didn't realize this tape was that long, so I'm really sorry about that, and I'm also really sorry about how graphic some of that was. I did not do a proper read through of that, and I sort of wish I did, because to be honest, I don't feel very well. What a fucking disgusting, vile piece of shit human. Now, I'm not one who is the type of person who is happy when someone has died, but good riddance. This guy deserved it entirely. What do you think about this case, if you listened all the way through? And what about that tape? I sort of wish I never read that. I'm sorry that if you listened to it, and sort of wish you didn't. I'm sorry that I brought it to your attention. It's fucked. My initial reaction is I feel extremely disgusted. And to the people who wrote out this transcript, how did you do that? Like, some of those details are way too graphic. As I said at the start of the show, before I got into the tape transcript, imagine what this sounded like to a woman, to one of the victims, for example, who was under the substance of drugs, who was affected by drugs at the time of listening to this tape. Like, being sober, being not on drugs would be scary enough, and having to listen to this tape, but imagine being affected by drugs while this tape was playing. I think I'm going to leave today's episode there, guys. I honestly didn't think the tape was going to be that long, and I didn't think it was going to be that graphic. And in all honesty, I sort of want to wrap the show up and go and watch something a little bit more lighthearted, maybe SpongeBob or something. So I'm gonna wrap the show up there. If you want to send a story into the show, or you have an experience yourself, whether it's true crime or paranormal related, that you want to share, the email you can send that to is scaredschmidtlesspod@gmail.com. Or just have a browse in the show notes. I also have a Twitter and Instagram now if you want to follow those. Leave the show a positive review if you enjoyed it, and reach out to the show if you want to. I'm not scary at all, I promise, and I would love to hear someone's thoughts about the Toybox Killer. At least one person, so I don't feel like I've just put myself through this. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll be back next week, and please stay safe.